Okay, everyone, we're back and we're making dinner. And tonight we are making a pork loin, French onion stuffed pork loin. It sounds a lot more complicated than it really is, I promise you. So let's start. What I'm doing here is I have peeled three onions, and now I am just thinly slicing them into rings. Over on my stove, I have about 3 tablespoons of butter melting in my cast iron pot. I'm using the cast iron pot because that is ultimately what we're going to cook the pork loin in. So I'm going to brown all of these onions up. I'm actually going to caramelize these onions, and that looks good. And then I will be cooking the pork loin in that same pot. So let me go dump these because I'm losing space on my cutting board. Hold on. Okay, y'all. So I know that's not a close-up of that, but that is just simply all of the onion cut into rings in butter in my cast iron pot. Not a lot to see. I'm going to add to that a half a cup of beef stock. You know, I always tell you need beef stock, not broth. So I'm going to put roughly a half a cup of beef stock in here. And hang on one second. Sorry I didn't get it earlier. A half a cup of Sutter Home. This happens to be Merlot red wine. If you don't like wine, leave it out. Not a problem. So basically, maybe a third of that bottle. So I'm going to let this kind of do its thing. And I'll tell you, the best thing to mix this with, to get down in there, is a pair of tongs. So you want to just mix this around. I've got it on a medium-high flame. And we're just going to let it sit over here and caramelize and do its thing. Okay? So now we're coming back over here to prepare the meat. Okay, so I'm going to turn this light back on because I think it might be helpful. Okay, so what I have here is a half of a pork loin. See that? The half of a pork loin. Yeah, I know you can't see that. Now you can. A whole pork loin is truly twice this size. It's about that long. Pork loin is just one of those things that is really, really hard to cook because it can be so dry. I mean, I've put it in crock pots. I've done a low and slow. I have done a whole lot of things. And what I find the only way to tenderize it is to tenderize it and beat it. So that's what we're going to do. But we're making this as a stuffed pork loin, right? Not hard to do. Don't panic. We're going to stuff it with Gruyere cheese or shredded Swiss if you can't find Gruyere. Although Aldi has it, and this is what it looks like, and it's really, really good. But if you can't find that, shredded Swiss works fine. And so we're going to cut this, and then we're going to pound it. So here we go. What I want you to do is take a very sharp knife, hopefully, and I want you see how the thickness of this thing, right? I want you to not cut it, this would be half, roughly half, right? I don't want you to cut it in half. I want you to go to about a third from the bottom, and I want you to go in horizontally, almost to the back, but not quite. All the way down, not quite to the back. I think I gotta go back some more up here. Can you see this? Yes, I hope you can. You can see it. If I can see it, you can see it. Okay, you see that? Okay, so now we've opened it kind of like a book. So now we're going to cut it again. We're going to go to the top now. The top third. So you see, this is the bottom. The part that's laying on the paper. I've got this on parchment paper, by the way. is the bottom. So go to the top, and we're going to start in here in the middle, and we're going to go kind of, and again, not quite all the way over. And, you know, and then we're going to open that up. You see that? Can open that a little bit more. There we go. So now we've opened it up like this. So now what we're going to do is, I'm going to wash my hands. I'll be right back. Hold on. Okay, what I wanted to do is I wanted to get another piece of, I wanted to wash my hands, get another piece of parchment paper, cover this with parchment, and get my meat whacker, right? This is a nice heavy one. Now you see how it's got like spikes on that side and then that side's flat. I never use the spiky side. It just tears meat up. There's a point, like if you're making cube steak or something like that, but even then you can go too far. So I'm using the flat side, and I'm going to pound it. This is the only way to make a pork loin palatable, is to tenderize it. Now, I am sure that there's a professional chef out there, sorry for the noise, I know it's there, who can make this into something, a thing of beauty. But it's not me. Okay, I'm going to keep pounding. And actually, you get the point. You don't need to listen to it. I'll come back and show you my finished pound, okay? Okay, we have it all pounded through now. And this is roughly, I'm going to tell you, this is about a third of an inch. That's about how thick you want it, about a third of an inch. And you see that? That's about what you want. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So there's 1 and there's 2. And maybe a little bit more. So about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And a teaspoon of salt. And you know my deal. I always use kosher salt. Always, always, always. So a teaspoon of salt. Teaspoon of pepper, and I also use coarse ground pepper because I think, again, it cooks better than ground pepper. Ground pepper is so thin that you can get too much real quick. And kosher salt will melt easy. It doesn't have that bitter taste of iodized salt and all that. You've heard me. You've heard my spiel. And this is not Sprite. This is oregano, and we want roughly a teaspoon of oregano. And you know, I always tell you, put it in your hand, use the heel of your other hand, kind of grind it up and put it in there. I got to smell those onions. I got to turn them. They're caramelizing up well. Turn them down a little bit. Be right back. I'm coming. So sorry. Okay, so this is, and a few shakes. So I'm going to tell you a half a teaspoon of, again, granulated garlic. And I get this at Costco. Granulated garlic, you've heard my spiel on that too, probably, ad infinitum. It's just better than, you can control the salt because you're using your regular salt, and then you don't want to use garlic salt. And powder, to me, is just chemically. So what we're going to do is we are going to hold on a second. I got to catch up to where I am. We're going to put this and season our meat. Going to rub it in here. And by adding it to the oil, you've got a nice even distribution. Hold on one second because I need to check on those onions. Okay, we got the onions out and we've got one side of this seasoned. We've got more in the bowl, but once we get this rolled up, we'll season the outside of it. So all we're going to do is we're going to take half of the, look at these caramelized onions. Oh, 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 oh. That's really good stuff. We're gonna put that, half of them, because we're gonna top it with the other half. So we'll put these inside. Mushrooms would be good here too, if you are so inclined, if you like mushrooms. My husband is just now getting to where he'll do it. He'll do mushroom. And then we want to take half of the Gruyere cheese and sprinkle it all over this. So it's calling for 2 cups of Gruyere. So So we got that sprinkled. Okay, so now comes the tricky part. Here comes the tricky part. Okay, so we're gonna roll it. We're gonna roll it as tightly as we can, and then we're gonna tie it. I'm telling you guys, don't be afraid of this. It's too good to not be afraid of. So what? I'm gonna take my rings off because, you know, yeesh. So I'm gonna roll it. Pull this down here, pull it up off my parchment, and roll it as tightly as I can. Can you see me? Yes, you can. I can see you. You can see me. And just kind of keep your fingers going and roll. Roll, roll, roll. Roll, roll, roll your boat. I'm going to push this in a little because I don't want it escaping. And there we go. Rolled. So now I'm going to take a piece of twine, and this is butcher's twine. You can get it at the grocery store, I promise. And I'm going to put the roll side, see, a bottom, okay, come on now, on the underneath side of here. And there's just nothing fancy. Right at the top, we're going to even make a bow. Nothing fancy. Or maybe even just a knot. Finger. And I've got 3 other pieces. And I'm going to lift it gently. Put that under that. Just slip it right under there. And tie it. I'm telling you guys, don't let this freak you out because I'm using butcher twine. I've never done that before. Well, it's not a big deal, as you can see. It's truly not. And this is just too good to miss out on because you're afraid. You can't be afraid to do something. Be fearless in the kitchen. Be fearless. I'm going to stuff that back in there. I'm going to trim these off. Because we're gonna sear it off. I don't know if I can get my coordination going here. Here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna trim these ends off so they don't get in my way. Actually, I've got one in the middle here too. Just so it all holds together nicely. Well, my brown rice is done. But you will be surprised because this will not take long. I will take that brown rice out and just keep it warm. All right. All right, let me wash my hands. Be right back. Hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm going to resituate us over by the stove, so I'll be right back. Okay, so here's our meat, and I've got about a tablespoon of olive oil in here, heating up. But let us not forget that we also have the rest of our salt, pepper, granulated garlic, and oregano here to sprinkle over this and rub all around it. So we'll do that. And then it's going to go in this pot, and I am going to sear it off on all sides. I'm going to lift it on the side. I'm going to sear it off on all sides, and then I am going to put it in the oven and let it finish in the oven at 350 for probably maybe 25 minutes. That's all it'll take. So that looks good to me. So this is the bottom. Put it in. Let's not throw that on the floor. And let's get it going. Here we go. She barely wants to fit in there, does she? It's all right. It'll be just fine. So let's let that. She's oily, messy. Just gonna sear. So I'm gonna wash my hands. I'll be right back. Probably should have had a little bit of bigger pot, but you know what? It'll be just fine. It'll be just fine. It will be just fine. So I'm going to cut this off, and when I flip it, so I can show you to sear at a quarter of a turn at a time. That's what we're going to be doing here. And then, like I said, I'm going to put it in the oven and let it go. And then about 5 minutes before I'm done, I will take it out and I'll put the rest of these onions and the rest of the cheese over the top and let that all get yummy. So I'll be back. Okay, can you see? Let me see if you can hopefully see in there the brown side. So when you sear this, if you have a big, this is another one of my gadgets, but it's an awesome thing. This is actually a fish spatula, but it is a nice long handle, lightweight thing, and it's very thin, so for fish it is actually perfect. And that, my sunlight, when it comes in the afternoon, it's scorching. So I'm going to let this, again, sear off on this quarter, and then we'll flip it. I'll be back. Oh yeah. Sometimes I have no idea what just happened here. Well, I think we're going to just keep filming because I'm afraid to touch it, to tell you the God's honest truth. I really am. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to stop this in more than one video. And I'm sorry, I don't know what happened, but here we go.